On this episode of the Ask Mike Reinold Show, we talk about non-op rehab for rotator cuff tears, combating the seated posture, and combining gymnastics and strength training. The Ask Mike Reinold Show. Helping people feel better, move better, and perform better. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Ask Mike Reinold Show. We are here to dominate your questions, right? I like that. We're gonna change the intro. We're gonna crush your questions today. Up here at Champion PT and Performance up in Boston. I'm here with Lenny Macrina, Dave Tilley, our physical therapy crew. One of our strength coaches, Rob Sutton, is here to join us for another awesome episode. Again, no student. We need our student rotation. We need to get our next one here. So sorry, we're gonna have to read the questions ourselves again.
So much
terrible. So Dave's turn to read the questions.
All right, Chester from Wyoming. Hi, Chester. I'm a third-year PT student. I just binge-watched your podcast on my 20-hour drive to my next clinical.
Wait,
Props.
you watched our podcast during your drive?
Oh, you listened. Binge-listened.
You binged-listened.
With the re-tear rate of rotator cuff repairs so high, yet the majority of PTs still achieving function through PT, should we be taking a conservative approach with all minor rotator cuff tears prior to considering surgery? If so, is there a way to discuss this with the orthopedic surgeon without being detrimental to the professional relationship?
All right, so good. So two questions, which is good. So one, okay, so cuff tears, there's a high re-tear rate. There's actually some good outcome studies that show that non-operative rehab is successful for especially some of these smalls. What do you think? Should we be doing more non-op with cuff tears?
I'd say have them do surgery.
Yeah, right in there. First.
No, just kidding. No, I mean, obviously, yeah. I mean, that's the first line of defense. It's like anything else. You sprain your knee, you get a meniscus tear, you get, UCL sprain. There's no reason why you should jump into a surgery unless it's like blatantly obvious. You fell off a 40-foot wall.
Yeah.
Like you dislocated your shoulder or something like that.
But that wouldn't be a small one.
Correct. So there wouldn't be a small one. So
right.
it would be something, definitely the first line of defense. Many doctors do approach it that way. Many doctors do not.
Right.
And so getting that professional relationship, like you mentioned, is critical. Some doctors can be more open-minded to discussing it with you. Others are already set in their ways, and they've been doing this for 25 years. I know what I'm doing. Leave me alone. You need to, maybe those are doctors you're not necessarily working with too closely. I don't know. You do try to approach them and present some of the research in a professional manner. I like to do things like that in a casual setting versus bringing them donuts to discuss rotator cuff repairs. It's like you're in a casual environment somewhere, I don't know, at a meeting and hanging out that evening, and you want to discuss stuff like that. That's how I find is the best approach, not necessarily in a big presentation form, because I think you're almost stepping on their turf. Yeah, and it's overwhelming for them. They don't want that. That's my opinion.
Especially as a PT student, especially as anyone within your, first 5, 10 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was a surgeon and some kid came up to me and started talking to me about, maybe I should be doing things differently, that'd be a little weird. It's tough with physicians. There's egos involved with everybody in every profession, but there's egos involved. So sometimes it's not worth it. Sometimes it's better to align yourself with physicians that you share similar qualities for.
Right.
So just maybe in the future you try to send more people to them, or refer people that way, so that way you create relationships with the right people versus trying to change people to your thought process, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's the only other thing with the cuff I would just say is, I have a couple of mid-50s fitness enthusiast CrossFit athletes that I'm actually rehabbing right now for post-op surgery. If you're listening, you probably are. That we're doing post-op, a husband-wife combo, and they both had the surgery, but they want to return to a good level, right? They wanted to assure they have good outcomes with that small. And I will say the re-tear rates aren't as high for smaller lesions. So you could almost flip this whole argument the other way and say you want to do surgery with these small ones, so that way you have a better chance of it not re-tearing. And you don't have a chance of it retracting over time and getting bigger and then irreparable if it's retracted.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's really specific to their goals. You know what I mean? I think that it's where they want to be in the end. And I also think that we have to play to our skill set of what we do well. And I think one thing that I haven't seen nearly as many cuffs as you guys have, but like understanding that there's a lot of other contributing factors around just the shoulder that I think sometimes the surgeons maybe don't overlook. Like people come with this raging thoracic kyphosis and they're really stiff in their neck, it's like, well, that affects your mobility, it affects all those things. So they're really good at looking at shoulders and saying, this is what's going on, this is what I think about the cuff. But conservatively, when you're in that approach, look around it, make sure there's other things we can fix while that shoulder may be a little flared up, a little cranky, you know?
And those two people that Mike talked about did do a pre-op course of PT,
which only helps them.
Touch base with us. And
right.
So it was pretty known that they probably needed surgery after trying conservative.
Yeah.
Zyra.
No, there's a difference between treating an outcome and then treating the causes, how you got to the outcome. That's pretty much like what you were saying.
Yeah.
You know.
It's the difference between PT and MD. A lot of times we are looking for the reasons.
Right.
A lot of times it's an MRI or the symptoms, you know. And yeah, so get a good relationship with your referring physician.
What's next, Dave?
All right. So Ryan,
Does Dave need a nickname for
The Davinator.
The Davinator.
no, I can't step on Gabe's toes. All right, Dave from Washington, Ryan from Washington, D.C. Hi, Ryan. I'm a full-time student who is constantly stuck in long positions of cervical, thoracic, lumbar flexion. Are there any exercises, stretches, or strategies that you recommend that could help offset this posture problem? I have the squeaky shoes.
The only sneakers that squeak at all times.
Dude, Nike Metcons, they're squeaky.
As you imagine working with this all day.
Hey, Mike, pass me the...
Oh my lord. What was the question? Oh, he's sitting.
PT students
You're
who
sitting like
reading
this
a lot or typing a lot. Are there things that you suggest to help combat problems?
Let's simplify this, right?
Stand up.
I'm gonna say I still gotta write this blog post. I get this in my head for like a year now, but sitting's not bad for you. Let's get that out of the way.
Agreed.
Not moving out of a sitting posture is what's bad for you. Never reversing that. So I call it reverse posturing, right? So if you're sitting flexed all day, you got to extend at some point to reverse that posture. You know, so get on your stomach, doing some prone exercises, whatever it may be. You have to get out of that. It's okay to sit like this all day, but you have to get out of that, just as much to kind of maintain that.
Yeah.
I think too much of anything is a bad thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We try to explain to patients that, again, like sitting's not bad, but if I literally went like this for, 6 hours, eventually something would start to bug me. It's just that being stuck in one thing.
Yeah,
So we try it.
Yeah. I don't know the dose, right? I actually do think if you sit all day, let's say you sit for 10 hours a day, actually we probably all sit more than that, but if you sit for 10 hours a day, I don't know if like 2 sets of 10 of like a prone exercise is enough. I don't know. I think it may be though. I don't think it's that bad. I think you just have to tell your body, your brain, your tissue that like, hey, I still want to extend sometimes. I don't want to just live in flexion. So I don't think the dose needs to be high, but I don't think we know that answer, but anyway, yeah, what else?
All right, Josh from Texas. Hi, Josh. Hello. I know Dave works with gymnasts. I see gymnasts that are some of the strongest people in the world, and I've heard they mostly stick to bodyweight work, yet they're incredibly strong. Do you see any benefit for these athletes, for general athletes, to incorporate gymnastics work as part of their strength training? Yes.
You got your chip questions.
Yeah, finally, yes.
Yeah, it's just like asking somebody at Burger King for a Big Mac.
Yeah, so I think there is benefit to the general population doing some gymnastics work, not like the crazy stuff you see, but it's just like really good for basic body awareness, I guess. Coordination, balance, those are flexibility, just fundamental principles of gymnastics. And some people get surprised by how they can't manage their own limbs well. Just doing some very basic gymnastics movements sometimes are really challenging because they haven't been exposed to that. They've been maybe in the weight room more traditionally or in a sport for their life. So I think it's good. You got to be very, very cautious about how you approach it because years of progression in gymnastics get you to some of the hardest stuff that you see. And it is true that they do a lot of volume for body weight conditioning, so it makes them relatively and proportionally strong to manage their own body weight. But I will say a huge trend is moving in gymnastics to using more external load and more strength training that's more traditional because we're still seeing that athletes, although they look maybe very jacked, they sometimes cannot handle the huge forces in the sport. So
Right. Well, and also to balance the imbalances.
Correct.
So they're getting hypertrophied in certain areas due to what they're doing, but perhaps they're doing too much imbalance.
They are no different than a swimmer, a baseball player who have all this underlying laxity, yet are strong in the sport that they do.
Yep.
Something's got to give eventually. Tissue's going to break down. Maybe smaller cuff muscles get overwhelmed by the bigger deltoid muscles, for example. So it's just like any other sport, whether it's swimming, baseball, or gymnastics. We're not just powerlifting, Olympic lifting, or not lifting. There's a fine line. There's those extremes or anything, as we talk about a ton in our podcast, is usually not good. And I'm that right in the middle kind of guy.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, well, thanks, guys. Another great episode. We appreciate it. Go to MikeReinold.com, click on the podcast link, ask us any question you want. We're getting great questions. We have so many questions, some really good ones. Just keep firing away. Subscribe to this on iTunes and other apps. Leave us a nice review, all those fun things. We want to hear from you so we can keep making this podcast better. So thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.